right, we are live. Welcome, guys, to this live. I'm going to be talking, it's a podcast. As you know, I do my podcast, and I'm going to be talking about should musicians be paid? We're going to talk about the commercialization of worship and should worship be charged for? Okay, so while I'm just waiting for people to come through, I don't know who's here yet. I'm just gonna share this on my other page because okay, there we go. I've got another my actual profile. So let me share this. So there we go. I can see. All right.
Should worship be charged for?
Phew, okay.
Okay, so
don't know about
well, I'm just waiting for people to come through. I don't know who's here.
All right, I think it's actually coming out nicely. Sorry, I just was also checking the sound as well. And so there we go. I don't know who else is on this live. And I will just share it. If you're just joining, please do share the live about this. So about should gospel musicians be paid? So yeah, it's quite a complicated it's a complicated topic, and I know there's this guy who really got popular. I think it's like it's a guy who went and I think he's a pastor or he's a bishop or something, and then he says no, musicians shouldn't be paid, and he says if musicians are paid they are evil or whatever. So the people say a lot about musicians. Okay, I also want to share this on my WhatsApp. So can you share that link with me? Go on and then share the link for this live. I'm not quite sure who's joined with me now. I can't really see yet. But if you're just joining us, this is what I'm going to be talking about. It's been a while before I've done a podcast. So many things happening, and some challenges, obviously, with electricity and all that other stuff that happens through. But today, got time to do this, and I will be doing more of this. So what I did is, it's okay. So what I did, please share with me the link when you get it. What I did, you sent it? Okay, cool. What I did is I wrote a book some years back. I actually need to publish this book. It's a book on worship. And I had so many things that I wrote in that book. I started this book a while back, but it's actually good that I haven't released anything, because the more I now have been, doing what I've been doing, worshiping, leading worship, playing for people. I've played for a lot of artists. I'm not going to name them by name, but I played for a lot of popular artists. And I've had my share challenges of things that have happened. I've learned a lot about the music industry. And today I want to specifically talk about the issue of paying musicians, and we're going to look at this within the church, because it is an issue with gospel musicians and within the church. So I wrote this book, and I don't know if you guys can see this. These are excerpts from the book. So it was like the issue about paying musicians. The book is called In the Beauty of Holiness, and it talks about worship. I haven't, I haven't released the book yet, because now I'm learning about more things, and there are more things that I'm actually going to be talking about. So I'm very happy that I have actually not released it yet. You didn't share it with me here.
I sent you
You sent on the other thing. Share me on the Econet, yeah. Just say the link. Okay, I'm just getting the link. I want to share this on my WhatsApp status and share to get more people. So if you're just joining me, bear with me, but we're getting straight into it. So while I'm getting this link, so the question that most people ask is it biblical to pay musicians for the work that they do in the church? tobhadhara here vanhu vanoita zvemusic in Zimbabwe vanhu vanofarira kushandisa the term majazzman, and it's such a silly term also, because I do not know where it came from that if someone plays the keyboard or if someone plays a guitar, they're a jazz man, because it's limited to one genre. So awesome, I got it now. So anyway, the people ask, is it biblical to pay musicians for the work that they do in church? Should we even pay musicians for the work that they do in church? That's what people ask. That's what people talk about. And like I said, there's this guy who the thing got very viral, and they were saying if musicians are paid in church, then they are children of the devil or something like that. If you guys remember, those guys who have watched it. So those are issues that I want to talk about. And like I said, I also want to talk about the commercialization of worship. Should worship be charged for even? So there's a lot of stuff to talk about here. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. In some churches, they pay their musicians. Panama church, I know, but the musicians have a problem now. They've got no problem in doing so. However, in Africa especially, but it's not limited to Africa, you will find that this discussion that I'm having, a lot of people are having this discussion actually about musicians and should musicians be paid. The problem I find in Africa is that the musicians are not paid and yet be expected to be fully committed to ministry. So that is a big problem. I know of a church, and I've got so many stories to tell now over the years. When I wrote this book, I put a few stories in this book, but I even have more stories. Someone I know in one church where they suspended their drummer for going to work. And because when he went to work, he didn't come to church. So they suspended the drummer because they were like, you went to work, you didn't come to church. But the church doesn't pay the drummer. The drummer is coming forth and doing stuff out of their own volition. They are actually a volunteer, and they are a full-time musician, so they work and they can go and do gigs elsewhere. So anyway, this topic, I know I might have some people, because I shared this on my page, some people who might not understand Shona, but I will translate. This means that issues to do with money are quite problematic, because when it comes to money, people really get, they really get riled up. So a lot of people in church especially, they'll say, why should musicians be paid? Then the ushers need to be paid. Then they'll say, then everyone in church needs to be paid. Why? They'll be like, why should the musicians be paid? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to address this subject biblically and show you what the Bible has to say about the issue of paying musicians, right? Because the scriptures have a lot to say about musicians specifically. So first, I'm going to address this issue from a biblical standpoint. I'm going to address it from a practical standpoint. I'm going to address it within the terms of where we are at now, because it's not something that can have a clear-cut answer. Some people will just be like, if you ask the question, they'll be like, should musicians be paid? And then for them, it's a yes-no answer. But it actually differs. It differs with the situation. It differs with the church. So basing on your church or your ministry, basing on where you're at, we can look at the different scenarios. But first of all, I want to address this biblically, because there are people who have lied, and they are saying, if musicians are asking for money, in terms of, let's say, a keyboardist. I've got a keyboard right now. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if we put a way in which it can be seen. If me as a pianist say, if I come to your church and play for you, I want to be paid because I'm a professional musician, right? But even if I'm not a professional musician, the issue is there is a standard when it comes to the Bible concerning musicians, right? But like I said, this is not like a clear-cut answer. So anyway, in the scriptures, because I love the scriptures. And the funny thing is, a lot of people who say musicians shouldn't be paid don't say it from a biblical perspective. They actually say it in antithesis or against what the Bible actually shares. So I'm going to start with 1 Chronicles 9 verse 33. And in 1 Chronicles 9 verse 33 says, "And these are the singers, chief of the fathers of the Levites, who remaining in the chambers were free, for they were employed in that work day and night." I'm going to read Ezra 11 verse 22b to 23. It says, "Of the sons of Asaph, the singers, were over the business of the house of God, for it was the king's commandment concerning them that a certain portion should be for the singers, due for every day." So these people were employed to do the work. When you go in the book of Chronicles, especially, so there are different types and different levels. If you go in the book of Chronicles, David, who himself was a psalmist, David was an instrumentalist, David was a singer, David was a psalmist, a man after God's heart, instituted. And you actually see that David, and we know a lot of the Psalms, not all of them, but we've got Psalms of David, Psalms of Asaph, Psalms of Korah. We've got a few Psalms by Moses. So guys, if you put the comments, you can put comments in as we go. I don't know who's on this live. I really can't see the live because of the way I've structured it today. But just put the comments. Maybe I'll have a look at them because I can use my other device for that. So in terms of employing people for ministry, it is not unbiblical to employ people for ministry. Actually, when you go in the scriptures, you see there is a pattern where people are employed for ministry, and at different levels, like I explained. There we looked at the singers, but when you look, especially in Chronicles, you will see it talks about those who would prophesy on the harp, instrumentalists. So, and these instrumentalists were actually prophets, they were ministers, and they were paid to do that work. So you find with Asaph and his sons, it was the Levites, the work of the Levites. We're going with scripture. So we're going to go with scripture. In the book of 1 Corinthians 9, right, verses 7 to 10, and I'm going to read in 13 to 14. It says, "Who goeth a warfare any time at his own charges? Who planted a vineyard and eateth not the fruit thereof? Or who feedeth the flock and eateth not the milk of the flock? Say I these things as a man," this is Paul speaking in 1 Corinthians, "or say not the law the same also? For it is written in the law of Moses, Thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn. Doth God care for oxen? Or saith he altogether for our sakes? No doubt this is written, that he that ploweth should plow in hope, and that he that thresheth in hope should be partaker of this hope. Do you not know that they which minister about the holy things live of the things of the temple, and they which wait at the altar are partakers with the altar? Even so the Lord ordained that those who preach the gospel should live from the gospel." We know Jesus in Matthew 10 verses 10 says, "A workman is worthy of his hire," right? So I think the challenge that has come through, because like I said, this is not an easy matter. It's a very complicated matter to talk about. I think the challenge that has come through is because a lot of instrumentalists, let's start with instrumentalists because I'm going to put it in levels. Vanoridza Magitare, we're talking about the instrumentalists. There are those who sing, those who just sing, or only singing. All they do is singing. They can't play. But all of these are musicians. They're different type of musicians, right? So I want to talk about instrumentalists and singers because it's important. So the question is, should singers be paid? Should instrumentalists be paid? You know, from a biblical perspective, both these classes of people should be paid, especially if they're employed to do the work. It is biblical to pay musicians. So anyone who would say it's not biblical to pay musicians is out of line. They're not in line with what the scripture teaches. And there's so much scripture I can add. Like I said, when I wrote this book, I actually wrote a few things. When you study the scriptures, you see concerning worship, it's quite complex, but it's there. And this scripture that I shared is sharing about those who preach the gospel, because someone who is in the ministry of worship is also a minister of the gospel. They do preach the gospel. So this is where I wanted to go with my point, to say the challenge that has happened now, because of the way that church has been structured now. It's like if I play an instrument, kunonzi chingoita izvozvo zvekuridza, iwe unoridza iwewe. It's so bad sometimes, even uchiridza unonzi iwe unoridza uimbi iwewe. Kana uchiimba unzi iwe uri muimba usimuparidze. And you notice you even have preachers who be like, when singers are singing, they'll be like, we don't want the singers to giving a sermon, because they are not, their job is not to give a sermon. But the thing is, musicians are preachers of the gospel. And this is a whole different point, but it is important. The problem came because people changed what the gospel is. We can even go to the commercialization of the gospel and this whole stage culture, where we've got a stage in front and everything sort of like happens at the stage, and especially with modern, contemporary, charismatic churches. And so, and even in traditional churches, because traditional churches, I don't think they pay their musicians at all. I stand to be corrected, but I know, because I was once in a traditional church. I used to go to Anglican at first before I changed. And you know, so it's a very complicated, the issue of paying musicians becomes very complicated, because people, like I said, panoita nyaya dzemari, people get really but then, so from a scriptural perspective, like I said, and there are so many other scriptures, the bottom line is that scripturally it is correct to pay your musicians. So I'm just going to try and make this short. I'm going to put something on YouTube. Hey guys, subscribe to my YouTube if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube, because I'm going to do a more comprehensive thing on YouTube, and then I'm going to put it on YouTube. But I started on Facebook. I do actually more podcasts on Facebook. I've actually never done a podcast on YouTube, but I'm going to do a podcast on YouTube for myself. I've done other podcasts for other things in different platforms, but not on my YouTube channel. So my YouTube channel is Tinashe Nyamkapa. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's also lots of great music there, so you want to subscribe to that. So maybe the question arises, and you can go on my website as well. If you go on my website, you actually see I did something about should musicians be paid, and I put it on my website. I haven't updated it, and I'm going to do more because there's more to talk about. The question arises, why should a church want to employ musicians? Ko church paine uzotanga kubhadhara musicians zvinenge zvaita sei? So I have listed a few reasons that when a church wants to do this, and I put church in quotes because the church is the body of Christ, but I'm talking about a denomination, because now we've got different denominations, right? But when we talk about the church and the body of Christ, you see even in the book of Acts, it talks about how no one lacked anything. It was not just limited to musicians. The church is a distribution center. Even when we don't go and talk about musicians, but the church itself is a distribution center. And a lot of us have lost the plot from the church that Jesus established to these denominations that have come. But that's also a whole other story for now. I want to focus on, should musicians be paid? So maybe the question that arises is, why would a church want to employ musicians? And I put some of these reasons like this. Number one, if the church desires to establish and maintain a prestigious standard of music, especially churches that write and record their own music, like we know Nyadzima copyrights, Zambonetsa Zimbabwe, we have churches that record their own music. They don't use other people's music. You know, there are churches that use hymns that were written a long time ago, but these hymns were also written by other people. But there are churches that use they record their own music. We see this a lot, especially in the Western world. Here, it's starting to start. and I know I was part of such a church as well that creates its own music. I was part of the team that actually wrote music. I wrote a lot of music for that church. I don't want to get in those issues. Like I said, there's so much that we can talk about. But so with such churches, they've got an MD, a music director, several instrumentalists, and choir members on a payroll. And they're able to achieve this because you see, now what happens is when a person is paid, a church has a right to expect a high level of commitment and a high level of excellence. You see, if I'm gonna say, for example, if I'm a church, right, and we've got Tinashe Nyamkapa Ministries and church yangu ndotanga church yangu City Church, and then I say you're coming into my church, and then I say I'm getting a musician, I'm getting Blessing, who's helping me. Shout out to Blessing, helping me right now with my sound and with this video. And then I say, so Blessing, I'm employing you as a musician, as a singer in my church, right? Forgive me for using that terminology because the church belongs to Jesus Christ, but I want to put out a point. When I pay Blessing, I can expect to say to Blessing, you were late. You didn't come on time. And I'm paying you. Why are you coming late to the service? You see, it's different when a church doesn't pay a musician. Yes, I'm not saying people should be late, but look at this. I'm a musician. You hire me, Tinashe. You haven't hired me. I'm a musician. I'm coming as a volunteer to your church, right? And then Ndombo tanga naenda ku gig. Oh, Maneru, I spent an evening playing at a gig. And then in the morning, you're like, why are you late? I'm late because I was playing at a gig. We finished late. I had to carry my equipment in my car. I had to do this and then now woke up. So, sorry I'm late, guys. But, it was tight. And so, when you don't pay people, you get these things happening. Because if you're not paying people, it's very hard for a certain level of commitment. Because in Novanati, with my skills, right? Because I'm a professional musician, I get paid outside of the church. If I go and do a gig, I can get lots of money for doing a gig, right? And then I come to church and then what do I get? I get trauma and I get trouble because munhu arikundidana kuti uya uridze kuchechi kwangu asitondibhadhara anything, asitomboni mpaka namari yefuel. I'm driving to that church. Maybe that church is far from me. Maybe that church is 10 kilometers from me, depending, I'm driving, I'm using my own fuel and whatever. And so the thing is, when you pay a person, now you can expect a certain level, a certain standard, a high level of commitment, a high level of excellence. And it's not a tauran. Because kubhadharwa, you're a worker, an employee. You're late. Dude, you're late. You are late, you are late, you're on a payroll. And then even within our contract, we can put clauses where we say, okay, if a person is being late, right? I'm just checking my WhatsApp status to see people who are seeing this. Please invite people, guys. Please share this live. Please do share this live. Share this live, guys. Share this live. I know it was just impromptu, but do share this live. I hope people are watching. I'm trying to see who's looking at this. I can't see anymore. All right. So we have gotten back to that point of saying, if you are paying the musician, then you can expect a high level of commitment, a high level of excellence, a higher level in everything. And also because we're paying you, you can't then give the excuse. Guys, I'm at a gig right now, but on Sunday I'm going to church. And especially some churches now actually employ their people, like they get them and they're like, they pay them good money. You're not gonna need to go and do gigs outside, especially during church time. So even Saturday, Sunday, these churches have a very robust program. Right. So point number 2, if the amount of time needed to do the work of the ministry exceeds what is reasonable for a typical church member to give, then the church should definitely consider employing. I think I had already gone into explaining this, right? Because you see, with music, what happens is people want to do rehearsals and whatnot. So Saturday, you need to come to my church, City Church. Blessing tokuda kuma rehearsal. But Blessing wants to go and do other things. Blessing has got work commitments, got family commitments. No, Bandana, David, I'm just giving names of my musicians that I work with in my ministry. No, Bandana, David needs, time to do other things. Saturday, the moment you start paying musicians, now you can make demands, because now you are saying the amount of time needed, we need to do a rehearsal, and you say, okay, you're going to come for a rehearsal. If it's like me, you'll be like, I'm going to pay you for the rehearsal. I'm paying you for it, because there are different levels at which you can pay people. You can either have a long-term contract. You can have a long-term contract where you are maybe paying people per month, because especially in Zimbabwe, you have to understand the informality of our economy and the economic problems we have. It needs people to be very creative when it comes even to compensating people. And this will help, because now you can compensate people in a way that will be beneficial both to the ministry, because ministry gets money from offerings and tithes and what if you believe in tithes. That's a whole other story. But guys, I don't want to get into those stories. But number 3, if the church's musicians are constantly giving excuses that they can't make it to practices and services because they are looking for money, a church might want to consider paying. There is an insight in Nehemiah 13 verse 10. I want to go to the Bible again. I'm very much deeply rooted and deeply structured in the things of the word. Saka, even as I'm talking, from the word, we talk about the Bible. And Nehemiah says, and I perceived that the portions of the Levites had not been given them, for the Levites and the singers that did the work were fled, everyone to his field. Then contended I with the rulers and said, why is the house of God forsaken? And I gathered them together and set them in their place. So when musicians are giving excuses that they are busy looking for money, that's actually a hint to say, hey guys, if you pay us, then we'll be able to do this. Because if I'm like, okay, like I'll give my own example. I'm like, okay, I've got lessons. I'm teaching this guy music. I've got a gig. I've got this and this. Then that is the excuse that I'm giving. And it's a genuine excuse. Any good excuse is still an excuse. It's a good excuse, but it's an excuse nonetheless. But it's a genuine excuse where I'm saying, listen, I've got work that I need to do so that I can get money. Because if I don't work, the Bible does even say, he who does not work will not eat, right? So when people start giving you excuses, and this is important for us, the leaders of ministries, I need to speak to the bishops, to the apostles, to the pastors. If you want a successful ministry, there are things that you're going to need to do to get this ministry moving. And one of the things you're going to need to do is you're going to need to start paying your musicians. I know many people don't like it. That's when I started at the beginning. Hey, my jazz man, kubhadharwa, these people who pay, whatever. So, these are part of the issues. There's more, but I don't want to make this too long. So I'm going to try and make it short as well. So, there's an issue that I need to address here. Remember, I said the question I asked at the beginning is, should musicians be paid? And I said, many people will go on a yes-no tangent. And I said, I'm going to address this question in 3 ways. One, biblically, to say, biblically, is it correct to pay musicians? Yes, it is correct. The Bible supports paying musicians. So should musicians be paid? Biblically, musicians should be paid. I'm going to go to a practical aspect now. There are different churches. Maybe you've got a small church, right? I know I'm part of a very small church. Mazano, some people are also doing house churches, okay? So maybe our church has got 5 people. Our church has got 7 people. But we do want musicians, right, in our church. And then the issue now is, how practical is it to pay the musician to be part of our ministry? But this is where now things come in, because for some churches, what they are doing is they are hiring out people. Some people are not even believers, you see. So this is where we need to talk about important things. I know there's a very popular Zimbabwean artist who said, no, me, I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in Christianity after a long time, but they built their portfolio by producing gospel music. They built their portfolio by playing in churches, right? And is there a question there? Oh, the comments. There's a lot of comments. Okay. Let me see the comment, what the comment is. Send me the comment because I can't really see. Let me see if I can see it. Hey, I think guys were commenting. I don't know the comment you have on. Let me just see. How can I do this? So, let's see the comments. Try to take things down. Yeah. All right. There we go. I think I can see the comment. Oh, hey, Tonderai Adrian, how are you? Tonderai says, hi, do you pay for music education? If so, I guess we all know the answer. Yeah, you bring a very important point. Thanks, Tonde. Thanks, great to see you. A musician just doesn't start playing. This is a very important thing, actually. You brought a very important point. I like the point where we get very interactive. I like it. Tondra is also a musician. He plays guitar. He brings a very important point where to say, for a person to get to the point where they can play, they actually need music education, because you just don't play. You just don't wake up and you're like, yes, I can play the keyboard. I can play the piano. I can play the guitar. Tondra is an amazing guitar player. So you just don't wake up and say, I'm playing the guitar like Tonde. So people have spent money to be educated in music. They've gone to music school. Well, Munom Zimbabwe, we know we don't really have. It's starting to come through. We now have a few music schools that are coming up and a few programs, and people are paying for those. So yes, it's an investment. A musician is an investment. And then I'll get into the issues of intellectual property, because this is important. But pane point I started before Tonde your comment, I saw your comment. Now I started example yekuti we already addressed the biblical aspect. I wanted to talk to a practical aspect. Tine church here is City Church. Our church is very small. Our church is starting. It's a new ministry. And so the issue now is it practical for City Church to pay musicians, right? So at least maybe the good thing in City Church is we already have musicians who are coming. They're volunteering themselves. They're coming. They are part of the church. Okay, that's good. And at least no famba, we get to do things because we already have a community of musicians in City Church. But still, as we are growing as a ministry, we have to get to the point where, because even as a small ministry as we are, there are times when Kelvin is going to say, I can't make it, guys. I can't make it. I can't make it because I need to go and work somewhere else, right? They can't make it for church. Saka, tatoe, one less musician. Right? There are days where I'm going to say, Nasi Sunday, Nasi Nini, I have to go to work. I have to go and teach. Or I've got a gig. I've got a wedding. Some weddings happen on Sunday. I play at weddings. So I'm going to say, I can't come to church. So there's that challenge. But as a small church, they are looking at practicality. So we're not paying any musicians at the moment, but we're looking at, is it practical? A church of 5, 6, 7 people, is it practical to pay our musicians? The practicality aspect of it is the challenge. We are not saying we're not paying musicians because musicians shouldn't be paid. No, we know that the Bible teaches us that the Levites should be taken care of. The Bible teaches us that the Levites should be paid. However, we're looking at the practicality of this small church. But here is where the heart comes out, and you can see, are you true in your heart? As a small church, you can be like, okay, we're not yet at the level where we can employ you as a musician, but we can give you fuel allowance. We can give you transport money if someone doesn't have a car and uses a combi, because people are at different levels. Someone uses a combi. They need transport money, and then sometimes transport no needs. Because sometimes they want to come to church, but they are coming, they have to do 2 combis depending with where you are. You know, someone is staying in a high density area there, but our church is here, right? In Mount Pleasant, right? And then they need to do 2 combis, right? And then to get to those combis, they need sometimes on a Sunday, because the combis are scarce and or arkuzairwa, Maria kombi no kwira. Right? So this person is a volunteer, wants to come to church, but they are thinking, okay, sometimes anogona kutozotadza kuti uya kuchechi because makombi akwidza angachifanga kukwira 50 cents, kombi ati $50, $2, because there are no combis and they're taking advantage. So there are things that can be done to show that people are sincere. And people will say, okay, we are a small ministry, but we are going to deal with your transport money. So maybe we'll give you $20 a week. It's a small ministry, but no problem, don't worry. It's a small ministry, but you look at those things. So there are practicality aspects to look at. But the reason I'm talking about, I wanted to go to near intellectual property. I wanted to share how even when you look at it from a non-spiritual aspect, some of the problems we have in Zim are because, for example, in Zim, we do not respect intellectual property. We don't understand intellectual property and even actual property. So, for example, I keep on giving examples. There's a small church that's starting. In I've got my own equipment. I've got my keyboard. I'll come with my keyboard, my sound card. I'll come to church and we have an awesome worship time, awesome sound. I bring my mixer. I'm bringing my equipment. This is my equipment. This is not even intellectual property. This is actual equipment that I'm bringing. The church is okay with hiring chairs or hiring a tent and paying the person who's giving them chairs money, but they're not okay with giving me money. I'm bringing my keyboard. I'm bringing my sound card, my mixer, my equipment, my microphones. I'm bringing these to say, let's come and let's worship the King of Kings. But the people are not happy with paying me because I'm just a musician, because we don't value music, because music in Rombi. But the church is happy to pay a person who's giving them chairs. Why don't people sit on the floor? Vangagare pasika. Kana kuri kuti nyaya kuti tiri haya zvinhu ndo ine issue. Toti aiwa saka ngatisahaya machair. Ngatigare pasi. Ngatisahaya matent, ngatisise mapostori topinda muchi tenda kumasango tonamatira ikoko. Because if the argument, that's where you see that a lot of people who make arguments that no, we shouldn't be paying musicians, they're not sincere. Their argument isn't coming from a heart of truthfulness, because we're talking about Christians, and Christians, as Christians, our heart, the heart posture. This is why David was a man after God's heart. Now, going back to the Bible, David instituted the tabernacle of praise, the tabernacle of worship. He was a man after God's heart because he understood, him himself as a player understood. But if I'm going to get someone and someone's going to come with their keyboard, someone's going to come with their guitar, this is what happens in churches. Let's talk about instrumentalists. I haven't gone to the singers. Someone comes with their guitar, someone comes with their keyboard, someone comes with their mixer and whatnot, especially the churches that are beginning, even some established churches. I know some established churches that the equipment that they have it's pathetic. I know I've been in these situations, and I've been in situations where I've actually hired a node and I've said, you know what, I really love this ministry. I want to see it prosper. I want to see the level of worship, the quality, the standard of the sound that we're giving. And I'm like, let me go and hire a Node. Let me go and hire a Motif. Let me go and hire Roland. The good thing now is I have my own equipment, so I don't hire equipment anymore. I have my own equipment now. I've gotten to the point where I have built myself up and I've got my own equipment. So I'm not hiring anymore. But still, the equipment that I'm bringing, if I go into the world, if I do a gig and I bring equipment, I'm paid for it, right? But even the same church, they hire a tent, they hire chairs. But then if I bring my equipment, they'll be like, no, we don't want to pay Tinashe, because Tinashe is a musician and musicians shouldn't be paid. So you see the aspects that people should think of. And then there was a point I was giving about intellectual property. where people have to understand that intellectual property should also be taken seriously. So we even look at churches that have people that write music for them. I know these things have been there, writing music for a church and getting nothing out of it. The church even sells CDs of the music that I have written. I have written this music. The church is a mega church and sells multiple CDs. Doesn't even pay me royalties. Okay, maybe you are saying you can't pay me a salary, but why don't you pay me royalties for the work that I am doing? You are busy making money. You're not even a poor church. You're busy making money, but you do not have the sincerity and the kindness to say there's someone who's giving us intellectual property. They are writing songs for us. And it even comes not to people who are writing. So there are these items and stuff. So it's quite complicated. Like I said, I don't know if we've got more comments that are coming through. And taking, all right, someone is asking something here. I will respond. I want to respond to it. Yeah. Okay, so awesome. So we're talking about should musicians be paid? And, you know, I'm delving over so many issues. Let me tell this guy, hey, to join me on the live. No, okay, that's okay. Don't worry. So messages coming through there. Trying to make this work. I should be seeing the comments on my laptop and stuff like that. I'm working on it on my systems. Right, we're going we've gone, I don't know how many minutes we've gone. I don't want to get too long. We've gone for, yeah, but it's important, the stuff I'm dealing with. And do invite people, guys, invite people, comment, put your comments, share the live, because the things I'm discussing are very important. So, like I said, the question of should musicians be paid can be addressed from the biblical aspects, the practical aspects, to say, I'm bringing my microphones, I'm bringing my keyboards, I'm bringing my mixers to your ministry, to your church in quotes. And you don't want to pay me, but you can pay the person who's providing chairs, the person who's providing the tent. You can pay the school that you're hiring. You are hiring the venue from the school. And so you can pay the school thousands of dollars, but you feel aggrieved if you pay me, who's bringing my equipment, a member of the household of faith. This is why I say the church has lost its, because in the book of Acts it says there is no one that lacked. So the thing is, there's a lack of sincerity and a lack of true biblical principles when it comes to addressing musicians, whether a singer, but especially instrumentalists. But I wanted to come to the issue of paying musicians and saying, should a church be paying musicians if we're going to go out into the world and get mercenaries who are not believers? Because there's an issue there where churches pay people, and these churches are actually good, and they'll be like, who pay people. I gave an example and I said, there's a musician who said, I don't believe in Jesus anymore. I don't think he ever did believe in Jesus because, and then this will bring another argument of, is it once saved, always saved, different doctrine, depending with the doctrine that you take to. But what happens is, that is why so many people think that paying musicians is devilish, because what happens is some people go and take people who do not believe in Jesus, but just because they can play good music, and then they take them and they're like, we need you. You see, this is the problem where we have commercialized the gospel. So there needs to be balance. Yes, musicians needs to be paid, but the musician that you are bringing, are they even of the household of faith? Because the church is the body of Christ. You cannot go out and get someone who does not believe in Jesus, who doesn't believe in the church, who's only coming because they want money. And then you say, oh yeah, because musicians should be paid, so let's go and take this unbeliever and bring them. Because don't think that you are gonna change them, or you're gonna evangelize or proselytize or convert them through the fact that you're paying them. The reason this person is coming is only because they want a paycheck. They're not coming because they love Jesus. They're not coming because they love the church. They're not coming because they love God. That is not the reason they are coming. So this is why I say this issue has to be. When I wrote my book, like I'm for those who just joined, I've got a book. It's called In the Beauty of Holiness. I wrote it a while back, but now I've gotten so much more insight because spending more years and learning more about ministry, learning more about how things happen. And so now the issue is, should a church be paying musicians if they are hiring people who don't even believe in Jesus? Is it even worth it? Yes, they want a good standard. Yes, they want great sound, awesome stuff. But the person that you're bringing and paying, are they even of the household of faith? And you see, this is where a lot of people lose it, because instead of going for people who are of the household of faith, they will go and they'll say, let me go and get Ningi. Vanoridza Magitare. Instead of going to get David, who's a little child. Yes, he might not be as good as a player XYZ. Anozikano aita 30 years achiridza gitari, but I believe him na Jesus. This player doesn't believe in Jesus. And so instead of going to David and say, as the household of faith, David, we know you are a believer. You might not be as good as XYZ in terms of playing, but we understand that if we pay musicians and if we build you up, you will come to that level and you will have the same skill set, because skills come also over time. And if people can dedicate their time, this is what I was talking about. So there are so many things to think about when you're saying, should musicians be paid? Because now the question is asking, this musician that we're paying, are they even a believer? Or are they just a mercenary who's coming for the paycheck? Because yes, musicians should be paid. I'm a musician myself. I want to be paid. Right? Though I will tell you my story of how first thing I was doing, I was getting paid, and then I said, no, I'm just going to volunteer. So I spent 6 years volunteering, never got a single payment, and I kept on playing in church with excellence, because I'm a great musician. I'm not just ringing my own horn, but I am a good musician. I am a professional musician. I can do a lot of things. So it's different also when someone like me makes a decision and says, okay, guys, don't pay me. I can come and volunteer. But even when someone is volunteering, consider the sacrifice that they are putting and consider giving a honorarium or an honorarium. English came with the boat. Or consider giving them a gift after some time. I spent 6 years in a ministry, never got it. That's a whole other thing. Anyway, I don't want to go there because I want to focus on this thing of saying, so what do we do? So we get into the issue of the commercialization of the gospel. The gospel has been commercialized now. We have lost it. The love of money, which is the root of all evil, has overtaken the church. So as I talk about these issues, believe me, I'm passionate as a musician about these things, but I'm also very understanding of the scriptures and of the times that we're living in, where the love of money has crept into the church. The prosperity gospel has become a bit of a challenge. And so we have things like when we're doing worship now, because people will be like, okay, we're going to pay the musicians, but all right, because now we're paying the musicians now because we want to hire a minister Ningi who is very popular. But Minister Ningi charges $1,000 to come and sing for us. But you see, even comes back to the issue of practicality. If a minister says they charge $5,000, $6,000 to come and minister to you, it's not going to be practical for you to have that minister every week. And so this is the issue. The question is, should we pay musicians? Yes. But we also need to look at it and say, when we're paying musicians, Is it okay for us to go and hire Benjamin Due from South Africa to come and minister to our church, City Church? It's a very small church. We go and we spend thousands of dollars. We spend nearly 100,000 to bring Benjamin Due. While we have musicians here within the vicinity of our local sphere, whom we can pour into, right? Through doing scriptural things, we pour into these people. And yes, we give them money, but we know that these people are loyal to our cause, are loyal to our ministry, are loyal to our church. Because I've seen it so many times. People go and they're like, we're going to call Maverick City. Maverick City is charging you $1 million to do one event. That event really, I don't even want to go into it. But you've got local people, and I'm not even talking about saying people who are known or whatever, who can come in. They don't have to be known, because that's why I put celebrity culture on the thing. You don't need a celebrity to worship, because now people worship celebrities. Then they ask, kuchechi kwenye kune conference. You've got a conference at your church. Okay, who's ministering? Oh, you've got minister ningini. Oh, this celebrity. Oh, awesome. So I'm gonna come to your thing. And the scriptures talk about, even when you go to biblically, and God says, take away from me the noise of your music. It's noise to me. God says it's noise to me, because what is happening is you have lost the main crux of worship, which is not about money, which is not about names, which is not about celebrities. God is not trying to create celebrity culture, celebrity worship culture that is now there. So should musicians be paid? Yes. But how are those musicians? Which musicians are we paying? Some of these musicians are not even believers. We know many musicians. I can say this by name because we know people like Marty Sampson of Hillsong. He wrote most of the Hillsong catalog. But the guy is no longer, he says, I'm no longer a believer. And that caused so much schism within the I'll put in quotes, within the body of Christ, because people were asking, because this guy, we were busy thinking, oh, praise the name of the Lord our God, and we're thinking, wow, beautiful song. But the guy who wrote that song is saying, I'm not a believer. So it's not just about paying musicians. There has to be wisdom in it. So this is now the fullness, the full counsel of God to say, yes, musicians should be paid. But what musicians are we paying? What do these musicians represent? And hey, guys, okay, this has gone long. And I want to do quite a number of other things. How many minutes? Okay, about 46 minutes. Can we do 14 more? And then 14 more minutes. Okay. The times one is over now. And the 14 minutes. And so tonight are 14 more minutes. Let me just check if there are any other comments. Guys, welcome to the live. Those who might just be joining. We're talking about, should musicians be paid, right? And okay, there we go. And I am just having a look here. Because I shared this. Let's see, comments. Tondera Ndegangwe is a comment. I think also now, how many people are in this live anyway? Let me just go into it and see. Live, okay. All right, cool. But this live will be available. So anyway, guys, I know some of you are going to get in the live when it's done. But this, I'm gonna do more live events, and I want you guys to to watch this. Let me also just share to a page so that I can get more people coming in. So okay, how do we do that? Okay, it's complicated. Oh my God. All right, so I want to do this. I'm going to put something also on YouTube. I'm going to go on YouTube and then put something later on, but maybe not today. Do subscribe to my YouTube channel and go on my website, you can see some of these issues that I've been discussing. But there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about in terms of should musicians be paid and all that other stuff. So I thought I was going to do 14 more minutes, but let me also just put it on an end here. But it was quite good. I'm very happy with it. I'm going to have a listen to it later. And if those who are just joining, remember to share this stuff. And yeah, thank you guys. For those who were on the live, those who have been watching, thank you for watching. Those who are going to watch after it's live, do share the live, share it with people, all right, so that we can get it done. So we are going to end the live now.